Hi everyone, it's August 1st and it's the beginning of an internet challenge with the hashtag RPGAday 2019. In this particular case, RPG standing for role-playing games, which as many of you know and as my t-shirt attests, I love role-playing games. And tonight's game night. It's August 1st, it's Thursday. Every 2 Thursdays my gaming group gets together and plays, and tonight I'm going to be running a game of Call of Cthulhu. I've got my Dungeon Master shirt on, my Stranger Things Dungeon Master shirt, just to add in a little bit of creepiness. There's a prompt every day for this challenge, and today's challenge is first. And I know that there are probably more clever ways of going about talking about first than talking about your first game or your first, experience of Dungeons and Dragons. But honestly, I love talking about this. This is a great story, so this is what I want to talk about. My first game with Dungeons and Dragons. I played for the first time in 1982. I know this because I know it was the same year that I saw Conan the Barbarian with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sword and the Sorcerer. Many people don't know about this movie because it's really crappy, but I love it. My dad snuck me into both of those movies at the drive-in. For those of you who don't know what a drive-in is, it's when you go to the movies in your vehicle, and there's an outdoor screen and all this sort of stuff, and it's really easy to sneak kids into this because you can throw them under a blanket. And in I went with my father, so my dad's awesome. Let's remember that I think that my dad is awesome, especially awesome for taking me to those movies when he probably shouldn't have been. But I loved it, and he would, cover my eyes during the sex scenes and let me watch all the beheadings, which is strange when you think about it, but whatever. Later in that year, because I was into everything fantasy, I loved Lord of the Rings. I'd gotten hooked because my friend Danny loaned me a copy of The Hobbit, and that just, fuel on the fire. And I was getting Marvel comics, Conan comics, and I was, reading through Lord of the Rings when I was in grade 4, moving into grade 5. So there I was in 1982. I was 11 years old, and I had picked up, erroneously, I had made a mistake. I picked up a module called Palace of the Silver Princess. The green book, not the infamous orange one. You have to Google that to find out more. I learned when I got home, this is not everything I need. I need the rules too. Didn't know what the game was. It was just something that had caught my attention. I loved all things fantasy, and this was a fantasy game that told me that I would be able to experience what it was like to be in a fantasy novel with my friends. And so I wanted that. And I got home and I had the rule book. I'd purchased the rule book, the great basic red rule book. Looked just like this one. It was not this one. This one's pristine. I got it on eBay for a song. Mine has gone the way of all the earth. It disappeared many, many years ago. Maybe I'll tell you that story this month. I don't know. But I brought that home and I read over a couple of pages, and it was very daunting. And I thought, I can't read all these rules. So I handed it over to my father because my dad would sneak me into these movies. Surely my dad was going to, read over the rules, and he would be my first dungeon master. So this is more than just one first. So maybe that's clever. So he spent some time reading those rules, and I badgered him. I know I did. I was like, Dad, did you read the rules? Dad, did you read the rules? And I remember him laying on his bed before he was going to, to sleep, and I'd be like, hey Dad, are you reading the rules? And he was reading the rules. What I found out as an adult is that my father hates board games. So I'm pretty sure this was probably one of the greatest sacrifices my father has ever made for me, to read through the Dungeons and Dragons basic rules and figure out to some degree what the game was about. The day dawned that we were going to play, and it was my friend Danny who got me into The Hobbit, who came over to play with me, and we rolled up our characters, and I'm pretty sure I rolled up like an elf, which back then in basic thing was a class. So if you're waiting for more information, that's it. I was an elf. And we entered the Palace of the Silver Princess, that module that I'd gotten. He'd also had to read over that. And we made our way into the castle. And I don't know if this is really how it happened, but this is how I remember it. That the first room we went into, we were attacked by these giant mosquito creatures, which are sturges for the nerds in the crowd. Because we didn't know any better, we thought, well, let's just kill these things. Let's just keep fighting. I mean, we could have shut that door and we could have kept adventuring. We could have walked around that place. But no, we had to fight those sturges. And we did not go gently into that good night. Actually, maybe we did, because they made short work of us. And it was like 5-10 minutes into the game, and the sturges had murdered us. We were dead on the floor. And I knew from what little I'd read about the game that we could roll new characters. And so I looked at my dad and I said, it's okay, right? We can totally roll new characters. The thing that had taken us like an hour to do already. And my dad just closed up the book. He said, nope, that's the end. That's how the game ends. And he walked out of the room. So my dad was my first dungeon master, first TPK, first game, first post of the month on RPG a day. There's going to be more to come. And just so everybody's clear, my dad was a great first dungeon master. He inspired me to become a dungeon master, mostly because I realized there was no way I was going to get to play unless I became the dungeon master, which has led to this